Welcome. My name is Arlene Chousmith, and I have my colleague, Khajavi, here with me. Today, we're going to be talking about the educational, physical, social, and emotional impacts on mental health. So, what exactly is mental health? Mental health is something that impacts lots of different areas of our students' lives. It can reduce the quality of life, it can reduce academic achievement, physical health, and have negative impacts on relationships with family and friends. Mental health issues can also affect a student's energy level, concentration, dependability, mental ability, and optimism. Stress, anxiety, sleep difficulties, and depression are just some of the areas that are commonly identified as mental health issues and can also negatively impact academic performance. So today we're going to be going over some tips for both parents and educators on what they can do to ensure good mental health in their students.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is educational mental health. And this isn't necessarily regarding if a child is able to read or write. It's the overall feeling about school and about learning. So one of the important things to do is to check in with your child daily on what they've been learning in school. Now, I know some of you may be actually working with your child throughout the day, but even checking in with them as their primary educator is helpful as well. You're going to want to ask your kiddos about their successes and their difficulties. And don't just say, how was school today or what did you learn? Ask open-ended questions. Ask specifically about math class, what concept they learned in math class, what concept they learned in science, and start to see if you can support them in their home life as well with those things. Research has shown us that active involvement in children's education leads to an overall more cohesive family unit. So for example, if you know your child is in 4th grade, and they're studying the missions, making a trip to one of the missions in our beautiful, state of California is a great way of incorporating the entire family into that educational experience for them. Also, being actively involved as a parent has been known to actually increase your own stake in their education, and it can elicit more ownership in preparing your child for their school day. This means you as the parent who potentially is, sending your child to school every day is more involved with learning prior to them going into school. The next important thing is to set up a routine in place. Now, some of us have been doing this for the past year because of the stay-at-home order, but moving forward, you want to make sure that there's a routine in place for their schoolwork, a daily schedule, a space for them to complete their schoolwork that has all of their materials in one location. One of the big things that I have found over my years working with parents is that there's no location or one central location where a child is doing their homework at home. So it leads to, I need a pencil, I need paper, and it actually ends up being more aggravating than it is just getting their schoolwork done. So making sure that place is available for them with all their materials, also making sure it's a place that's distraction-free as possible, well lit and ventilated, and maybe inviting. So maybe near a window if it's not distracting for your child, or a plant. I do know a lot of parents use the kitchen counter as a great place because they're making dinner or they're getting things ready. Also, even if it's a time where maybe you yourself have bills to pay, we all have those, or your own schoolwork or your own work, have a central location for the entire family maybe to be working at the same time. It's really important to make sure that while your children are doing their schoolwork, there's no distractions that we can control. That's TV is a big thing, the radio, the computer, things like that. Making sure those things are all turned off. That way, it's really a really great way to set them up for success. Okay, the next thing we mentioned a little bit before, technology. That is the major elephant in the room. Right now, technology is used more than ever before. But this does not mean it needs to consume your life or your child's life. We would recommend that the technology guidelines be set up in your house, and everyone, that means you too, mom and dad, stick to it. So for example, say schoolwork is done between the hours of 8 and 3, or maybe work is done between the hours of 8 and 5. And then after that, all technology is off. Chromebooks, tablets, cell phones. Children are the best imitation of ourselves. And if you are on your phone all the time checking social media, they will be too. Really making sure technology is something that is talked about in your home and limits are put on it. We have found more and more decline in mental health because of the amount of technology that's being used today in both children and in adults. And again, make it a family event. Read to your children every night, even if they are considered quote unquote old. My 13-year-old gets so upset when I don't read to them at night. I have a 13-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy, and a 9-year-old girl, and they get really upset when I don't read to them at night for whatever reason. So it doesn't matter how old your kids are, reading to them. Make for learning fun. Have the entire family engage in that spelling bee or that multiplication fact fluency game. You know, on road trips, look for license plates, talk about the different states. You know, if you're in 5th grade, you're studying the capitals, make it a game. It's never too early or too late to be refreshed or learned on some of the things that we need to know as adults moving forward. And again, a big thing for me, turn those electronics off and bring out those board games and puzzles. Scrabble, Clue. Another thing that we just found in our house is Rummikub. Those are great ways of getting the children's brains engaged and actually learning, and it's all made up in a game. And again, don't be afraid to include conversations early on about colleges and trade schools. There's nothing wrong about talking to your children about colleges, even as early as 5 years old. This isn't saying they're Harvard bound and you want to put stress on them, but just having that conversation about where they might want to be when they grow up, what they think they might want to do, and don't limit it to those 4-year universities. Talk about trade schools, talk about community colleges, talk about things like that, because not everybody's college bound, and that's totally okay. And they need to know that early on.
So the next part of mental health that we're going to discuss is the physical aspect. So exercise and diet are two of the most important parts of the physical aspects of mental health. Regular exercise can have a positive impact on mental health, and it can give you a sense of well-being. Exercise can promote changes in your brain, including neural growth, reduced inflammation, and the release of powerful chemicals that make you feel good through endorphins. So we recommend that kids should be getting at least 60 minutes of physical activity, ideally outside with fresh air every day. So we have made it routine since the pandemic started to go on daily walks around our neighborhood, and we go on hikes on the weekends just to get out and get fresh air and enjoy nature. Luckily, we live in Southern California where the weather is nice all year round, and so it's okay for us to be outside and enjoy our environment. Another part is diet. Eating a well-balanced, rich diet in fruits and vegetables can also help reduce stress and depression. Studies have shown that a Mediterranean diet can reduce anxiety and depression, while a poor diet is linked to poorer mental health in children and adolescents. And so I know it's really hard for, picky eaters to get those fruits and vegetables into their diet. So I like to sneak, fruits and vegetables into my kids' diet without them realizing. I make them smoothies where it's, apple juice, strawberries, bananas, blueberries, and then I add a handful of spinach and blend it all up, and they can't even taste the spinach. Or there's, cutting up vegetables and putting them into the pasta sauce super finely that they don't realize that it's there. And so there's tons of resources and recipes on the internet if you just want to Google sneaking vegetables into my kids' diet. The next part of physical is sleep and chores. And so sleep is very closely connected to mental health. As we all know, even as adults, lack of sleep can cause irritability, increased stress, forgetfulness, difficulty with learning, and low motivation, which over time can contribute to anxiety and depression. Children's brain needs sleep to help restore and solve problems so that they can learn new information. So a tired brain makes it harder to learn and just function in daily life. And so a recommended amount of sleep for 6 to 12-year-olds is about 9 to 12 hours a day in 24 hours. And then for 13 to 18-year-olds, the recommended amount of sleep is 8 to 10-year-olds, sorry, 8 to 10 hours a day. So in our reference page at the end of our PowerPoint here, I have links to resources that kind of give a more accurate recommendations for sleep hours. The other thing is having responsibilities or chores can also support a student's cognitive, emotional, physical, and social development. Letting them contribute to the household and feel like they're a responsible member of the family can be powerful. So having reliable routines can also provide a sense of control and trust. Chores help a kid develop confidence, self-esteem, gratitude, family connections, and build self-regulation skills. So chores can start at a very early age. So toddlers can help with picking up their toys. A 5 to 6-year-old can help with clearing the table, sorting laundry. Lower elementary kids can help with feeding the pets, making their easy lunches, doing the dishes or sweeping. And then upper elementary and middle school students can help with washing cars, taking out the trash, doing their own laundry. And then high school students can help with cleaning the bathroom, mowing the lawn, or even doing grocery runs. Again, more resources and references in the charts at the end of this PowerPoint. So the next aspect is the social part of mental health. So there's two different parts. There's the interpersonal as well as the intrapersonal. So first I'm going to talk about the interpersonal. So having that strong relationship with family and friends in a community makes people happier and have fewer health problems and live longer in general. Relationships help us feel connected, face challenges, celebrate wins, and overcome stressful situations. So being surrounded by love, by people we care and love and support us, brings up our overall mental health. Those positive relationships can actually decrease depression and anxiety. And one of the most important relationships that we as adults have can come from that parent-child relationship that we formed when we were younger. And then it also helps set for the scene for future relationships. So what is a healthy relationship? So discuss with your child what a healthy relationship looks like, which includes communication, respect, trust, consent, support, and responsibility. Teach your students how to effectively communicate, because communication is a vital part of having positive, healthy relationships. Knowing how to work together as a team, that collaboration, trust, and efficiency. And to do that, you can practice teamwork at home by having some family bonding games, like Catherine had mentioned, playing games together as a family can bring you closer together. In our house, we have family game nights. We have a weekly Friday movie night, all activities that kind of bring us together as a family in a shared experience. Model positive, healthy relationships at home, and let them know that it's okay to have disagreements or arguments with your family and friends. Everyone does. It's perfectly normal, but it's how you handle yourself afterwards that's important. Teaching kids how to apologize correctly and sincerely, instead of just, oh, I'm sorry. Like whenever, our kids are so used to just automatically saying, oh, I'm sorry, anytime they feel like they're getting in trouble or they've done something wrong. But really teaching kids how to apologize correctly and effectively, and knowing that it means that I'm sorry I made you feel this way. I'm sorry for doing this. How can I make it right? And follow through on how to make it right. And then taking that ownership of what you did wrong, and then proving that you are really sorry, and then asking for forgiveness. Again, there's resources on the last page. So the other part, like I mentioned before, was the intrapersonal, or within a person. And so that includes self-awareness as well as self-management. Self-awareness is the ability to understand our own emotions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence our behavior. Being able to recognize our own strengths and limitations is actually gives us a more sense of purpose in our life. Not everybody is good at everything, and that's okay. Nobody is supposed to be good at everything, and that's okay. And so it's okay for our students to also realize that they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be the best at everything that they do. Being able to recognize our strengths and limitations also help us develop interest and a sense of purpose in life. Self-management is the ability to manage your own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively, to achieve goals and aspirations. So having that capacity to delay gratification, manage stress, feel motivation and agency to accomplish personal and collective goals, and planning and organizational skills in our daily lives. So some skills to practice for self-awareness and self-management include keeping an open mind, being mindful of your strengths and weaknesses, and practicing having that growth mindset, being able to think outside the box, being able to want to try harder or try to figure out a problem instead of just letting something difficult stop you in your tracks. Being able to stay focused, set boundaries, know your triggers, know what makes you upset or makes you fly off the handle, and then being able to control that. Embracing your intuition and practicing some self-discipline. Self-management includes taking care of yourself, practicing patience, focus your attention on one thing at a time. I know in our daily lives, everybody is so busy. We're constantly multitasking, trying to do multiple things at one time, but being able to really focus your attention on one thing and doing that thing well is actually important to our mental health, reflecting on your strengths, setting goals, being prepared and planning for the day, and then just taking a breath to think before you speak.
So for our last thing, we're going to talk about emotional. And this is looking really at the actual emotions and how we can better help our children become equipped to express their emotions. So first thing we're going to talk about is teaching children at a very early age how to identify and express their feelings. For any of you out there who are watching or listening to this and have a middle schooler and high schooler, do not worry, it is not too late. You can use these exact same strategies. I'll be honest, my children are not my biological children. And when I met them, they had a really hard time expressing their emotions. And when I met them, they were 7, 10, and 11, I want to say. And they had some very big emotions that were not the best way of expressing them. And now they are fully able to express their emotions in a much better and productive way. So I don't want you to worry that if you've got, again, a 13-year-old who's having some really hard times expressing, they can be taught. Okay, so the first thing is really, it's very simple. It's just helping them to identify feelings for your children. And this sometimes may be you identifying it for them. So for example, if your child is feeling upset or acting upset, frustrated, sad, and even happy and joyful, make sure you engage in a conversation with them about how they are feeling and help them define their feelings with words. For example, if you have a 3-year-old having a little bit of a temper tantrum, say, "Ow, I see that you're stomping your feet. Are you feeling mad? I know when I feel mad, I want to stomp my feet too. Is that how you're feeling?" 3-year-olds may not be able to tell you they're feeling mad, but they can sure tell you all their other feelings. They're going to scream, they're going to cry, they're going to have a tantrum. Helping them put those physical reactions into words is really going to help them. The same way when you've got a 3-year-old or a 13-year-old with a big smile on their face, say, "Wow, you have a huge smile on your face. You must be feeling happy. Are you feeling happy?" And then say, "What does happy feel like to you?" Have them explain what it feels like. You can tell them, they can say things like, "Oh, it feels like sunshine," or "It feels like I could do anything I want." Have them describe it, because then when they have those feelings again, they're better able to make sense of them. Now, once your kiddos have been able to define some of their emotions, the next really crucial thing is getting them to set appropriate boundaries with feelings. Now, we want to encourage our kiddos to feel all their feelings. We want them to experience every feeling, even those negative ones. As much as we want to protect them, they need to feel them. But the way they let those feelings out needs to be appropriate and needs to be constructive. So again, I'm going to talk about my little 3-year-old. Doesn't exist yet, but my little 3-year-old, you've seen them all in the Target shopping cart, throwing a little tantrum. First, you want to validate their feelings. "Wow, I see that you're upset, and I understand that you want that toy." Validate it. It's okay that they're upset, they want that toy. Totally okay. It's not okay the way they're responding to that feeling. And then you're going to want to correct it. I understand that you're upset, but when you get upset because you're not getting your way, it does not give you permission to throw things at mommy or to hit your sister or to throw the toy on the floor. And then give them help. Let's think of other ways that you can show me you're angry without throwing the toy. Now, I know some of you may actually have a 3-year-old that you're dealing with this with, and maybe thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work to do in Target. And you're right, it is. And they may not be ready for all of these steps right at that moment, but it's important you go through all of these at one point pretty quickly after they kind of de-escalated or kind of calmed down. And I tell you this now, it is much easier to help a 3-year-old de-escalate than it will be a 17-year-old de-escalate. Because when they're 17 and they haven't been taught how to manage their feelings appropriately or how to have boundaries, it's going to be a lot worse than throwing a toy on the floor in Target. Now, once we have helped them define their emotions and we've helped them put some great boundaries in place for the emotions, it is really important for us as parents to take a step back and let them feel all their feelings. And what I mean by this is the hard part, mom and dad. You need to let them fail sometimes. You need to let them get hurt. You need to let them feel frustrated. You need to let them not get that toy. You need to let them experience all of those feelings, because if they don't experience them when they're little and they experience them when they're bigger, their reactions are going to be much more unhealthy. And if we shelter them for all the painful emotions that this life has to give us, they are not going to know what to do when they're feeling when they get older. And they're going to have a really hard time coping with those feelings when they wash over them in high school, in college, that first time on a job. It's really important that they are able to work through all those feelings before you are out of the picture helping them. One thing is that they are going to have better coping skills when they get older. And remember, this is the part that kind of might keep you sane when your child's having that meltdown and you feel like you just want to give them that toy in so they stop. It's our job as parents to guide our kiddos through the feelings, not protect them from all their feelings. If we protect them from their bad feelings, we really aren't doing our job. And if you need anything else to kind of give you some support, research has shown that kiddos who are able to navigate their emotions are more resilient overall and typically are more successful. So I want you to let that sink in for a second. Just because I know right now you want to give in to that 3-year-old who's throwing that tantrum at Target and everybody's looking at you, I understand that. But trust me, later on, because you didn't give in and because they had to work through it themselves and they were able to make a better choice the next time that happened, they are going to be more resilient as they get older, and they are going to be more successful in life. So I believe, yes. So last thing we have here is our resources. And so like Arlene mentioned, the first couple here, these are all links that you can click on, are all different ways in which you can help your student with your emotions. There are way more resources out there than we could put on this one slide. We have here the chore list by age, effective communication skills, how to say I'm sorry that Arlene was talking about. Towards the end, I did put in here a couple links to instant help books for teenagers and kids. I will tell you that in my work as a school psychologist, I would have these books on hand when I was in a brick and mortar school. I would have these workbooks on hand, and honestly, a lot of times I would hand them to my students, especially my middle school students who are dealing with anxiety or maybe even some trauma or stress, and they love them. They're very inexpensive, and there's something you can work on as a family or just individually. The zones of regulation is something we use at both Montessori and Dimension, so something that they should be a little bit aware of. And then there's some emotional toolkits, and then emotes is a really fun program that I had the privilege of researching when I was in grad school. And these are little guides. You can obviously order from it, but there's a lot of free dittos on the site, and where there's these little guys who teach children about emotions. And so these are some of the resources that we have. Again, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but Pinterest actually has a lot of great resources. for sneaking veggies in, like Arlene was talking about. They actually have some great resources for routine charts, setting up different ways of setting up a child's work center at home to work. So these are just the tip of the iceberg on resources for you in helping your students. Arlene, anything else?
I was just going to add that we will be including our email address in the information that gets out, so that if any have any additional questions, they can feel free to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to our presentation today. And again, feel free to contact us if you need any support. Thank you and have a good rest of your day.